What's up, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about 167 and the Glory Light Heavyweight Kickboxing Grand Prix. I realized I didn't need to say kickboxing there because it's Glory, but the one championship mindset. I guess I just feel the need to define what we're going to be talking about. A couple of things to kick off. This is going to be a slightly different thing. I don't know whether I'm going to be doing this going forward. There'll be another channel on this video covering some MMA stuff that happened over the weekend from Europe, where I'm going to do a similar thing, a little bit more of like a laid back kind of thing. So, maybe get a cup of tea or do some work at the same time or something, and we'll talk about these fights. And it's not going to be as, when I do those one championship previews and stuff, I'm super high energy, but we're just gonna take it easy a little bit and talk about some of these fights. I do have headphones on because today, of all days, when I decided to do these on a Monday morning, there is stuff going on everywhere near my house. There are people next door getting some work done, and right outside my window, they've decided to come and trim all of the hedges and trees. And so without these headphones on, I cannot hear myself think, let alone speak. So that is what we are doing today. The audio might sound a little bit different as a result, as I might have to do some more noise canceling stuff. So yeah, there'll be a little bit different going on here. But let's talk about 1167. That of course went down. Well, for me in the UK, it would be the early hours of Saturday morning. But depending on where you are in the world, Friday night if you're in the US, I suppose, and like early Saturday morning, like well, just Saturday morning actually for if you are on the Asian time zone. So of course, one of the biggest shows of the year so far for one championship, I would say. Was it bigger than the Japan card for 1165? Takeru maybe justifies it being bigger, but I would say if it was Takeru Rodtang, I'd probably say that was the biggest. But in terms of the whole card, I think this was probably the biggest one. Just the name value on this card alone. Obviously, 1166 in Qatar had some big fights on there as well. But again, I think name value on this one is I suppose that had 3 title fights, but definitely one of the biggest shows of the year for one championship. And I guess kind of the end of this first half of the year for one championship. I know that we have the rest of the month still to go, and there's a big Friday fights card too, so maybe I shouldn't speak that soon. But of course, the big numbered event before we head into the second half of the year, and the 2 big shows in America, potentially a Japan card in there as well. Let's talk about it top to bottom. Bantamweight Muay Thai kicked off the card. Johan Estupinan got the win. This fight was, a late addition to the card, and it served its purpose, I think, as a decent opener. And get some more Muay Thai on the card. I'm not mad at that. Atomweight MMA, you had Itsuki Hirata versus Victoria Souza, one of the big upsets of the card. 2 upsets back to back, actually, here. A really impressive win for Victoria Souza. I'll be honest, I didn't see this coming. I said in my preview that for me, this fight had to be a impressive performance from Itsuki, and I wasn't really looking at a lot else. I wasn't saying that she was gonna get the win in impressive fashion, but for me, that is what she needed to do, and it obviously didn't happen. Victoria Souza got that guillotine, in my opinion, a little bit too easy to get the guillotine. I was liking what I was hearing from Itsuki Hirata in the build up to this fight as well, about changing some things and really taking a closer look at what she was doing wrong in some of her other fights, maybe not having the willingness to put herself in danger at points. And, I guess it kind of backfired. She put herself in too much danger too easily, and Victoria Souza got the submission win. Like I said, back-to-back upsets. You then had Joanne Ghazali versus Nguyen Tran in that. What a crazy fight this was. Joanne Ghazali had said in the build-up, I guess it was a hustle, about wanting to go into the later rounds and taking things slow, and then he came out like a bull at a china shop, just trying to take Nguyen's hat. He didn't have a hat, but if he did have a hat, Johan Ghazali would have tried to take it off. Nguyen just, kind of banked on the experience a little bit and didn't back down from the firefight, and that won him the fight. Johan was a bit reckless, definitely was overthrowing a lot of his shots. I think if he had played it smart, this would have been a fairly comfortable win. Personally, it was still a close fight, and I thought it was not a great performance from Ghazali. So, I mean, a big win for Nguyen Tran on that. So, fair play to him. Adrian Lee making his MMA debut against Antonio Mammarella, who, if you watch my preview, I have to try really hard to not call him Santino Marella. That's one for you wrestling fans out there. Deep, is it deep cut now? No, I guess it isn't. Anyway, Adrian Lee making his pro debut. Of course, a lot of hype around Adrian Lee, and he got the win. Submission in the second round, and he looked very impressive. Of course, you don't want to. One of the things I'm cautious about is getting too overhyped, right? He got a debut win and he looked good. You know, is it, you know, are we going to start calling him a future world champion? Not quite yet, I don't think, but it was a very impressive win. I mean, again, you talk about people coming out the gate fast. Jesus, Adrian Lee was trying to take his head off from the very start and then immediately went to his grappling, and that was the story of the fight. And like I said, he got the submission in the second round. Again, don't want to get too overhyped on this right now, but impressive performance nonetheless. Denise Zamboanga, of course, replacement opponent for her. She was supposed to fight Stamp for the atomweight title, ended up taking on Noelle Grandjean on late notice. A good performance from Denise, very much in the same kind of trajectory of her recent wins that earned her the title shot, in my opinion. Like, good, well-rounded display. Striking seems to be coming on constantly. Her grappling was very good in this fight. She used it mostly in the first round. I thought that was her best round of the fight. And then rounds 2 and 3 were decent. Nothing crazy. You know, this wasn't like Denise winning this is like, oh my god, is Denise the best atomweight in the division? I still think Stamp is the best, and I would still pick her to. Oh, sorry, my headphones went all weird then. I would still pick Stamp in that fight when it eventually does happen, but yeah, a good win. And of course, you know, this could have been disastrous for Denise if she had lost this fight and then lost the title shot to Noelle, who isn't really in the title picture. But yeah, solid performance, good win. Featherweight kickboxing, one of the performances of the night, in my opinion, from Sitachai, who of course welcomed Masaki Nori to the promotion. And I thought that this was, they said it on commentary, it was Sitachai rolling back the years. You were thinking, is Masaki Nori going to take his place in the division, you know, immediately cement himself into that upper bracket of guys with the likes of Chingiz Alazov, Superbon, Marat Gregorian. But Sitachai looked good. He didn't just look good, he looked great. The first round in particular, his combinations were so slick. Nori was coming into the fight. I think if it was 5 rounds, then maybe it would have got more interesting, because I think he got better as the fight went on, his pressure. But for all of that pressure, he just didn't really seem to be able to get a grasp on Sitachai. Like, he was closing him down and doing some good work, but every single time he got near him, Sitachai seemed to land the better shots on the counter and get out. Like, him fighting off the back foot in this fight was seriously impressive. And I was kind of surprised to see it, because I think Masaki Nori will have watched Sitachai's last fight against Marat Gregorian in January and thought, all right, this is how I get to him. I just got to keep going, you know, and he wasn't able to do it. And Sitachai looked very, very good. So interesting to see what is next for him. Another performance of the night, in my opinion, K. Rutolo MMA debut against Blake Cooper. Again, don't want to get too crazy overhyped here and say K. Rutolo is going to be the world champion. This was his first fight in MMA, and his striking, the majority of the first round was striking, and it looked good. I don't think it looked great. He looked more comfortable than I thought he would, but definitely a little bit pulling the trigger when maybe he shouldn't. I would like to have seen more feints. There was a lot of head kicks that kind of just seemed like testing the waters and engaging without engaging. Although when it came time to close that distance, he did it. It was a little bit like unsafe, if that makes sense. I'm sure that's something his corner picked up on when he did close the distance. He could have eaten a counter or two on the way in, or potentially like a step in knee or something from Blake Cooper, who I don't think he really has that in his arsenal, not that from what I've seen, but still a danger, of course, against other opponents. But of course, once Cade got to him and got his hands on him, I mean, Blake Cooper has got a decent wrestling pedigree, but you know, Cade got him and was able to get his back, and from there you're thinking he's got, you know, like, I don't know how long he had left on the clock at that point, like 2 minutes, and you're thinking this is probably a wrap from this point on. And as soon as he starts trying to get the choke, and you're like, oh, he hasn't quite got it. If it was like anybody else in the world in MMA, maybe apart from, you know, the very best jiu-jitsu guys in MMA, you're thinking maybe Blake Cooper might defend this, whatever, might be able to see the round out. But with Cade, it was like, no, this is done. And he adjusted it and got the submission, and it was, yeah, impressive. And Cade openly said himself, like, my striking didn't feel as good as it does in the gym. So maybe a little bit of nerves there or something. It is, I'm sure, a very, very different experience. Even if you do prepare yourself very well, it's nothing quite like fighting under those bright lights. But yeah, impressive debut for Cade Ruotolo, in my opinion. 3 fights left on this card. We've been going for 10 minutes, so I'll try and make this a little bit quicker. Mikey Musumeci submitting Gabriel Souza. This was probably my favorite performance from Mikey in one championship so far. I've enjoyed his other performances as well, so that's not me criticizing him. I just thought that this one, for a start, you've got an opponent like Gabriel Souza who there's a narrative. He was the last man to beat Musumeci 3 years ago, submitted him in 2021, but also Gabriel Souza came runner-up in ADCC, I believe. Like, the guy is super legit. I mean, he has a submission win over Musumeci 3 years ago. So you had the quality on show here, but also the narrative. And I think that this answered a lot of questions about Mikey, because a lot of people have been complaining about mismatches with Mikey and about how he isn't fighting, super competitive matchups. But you put him in there with one of the best guys in the world, and he kind of made it look easy. That is just how good Mikey Musumeci is. Like, half slice of submission. He was working on it from early, and then eventually, I say eventually, it was still quite an early finish, right? But he had that submission working away for quite some time. And then the post-fight interview, I'll be honest, was the part I was most impressed by from Mikey. I know that he apologized after in the press conference for it, but I thought it was great to see that kind of passion from him. All of the criticisms he's faced. I know that Gabriel Souza has hit back and been like, none of this is true. I haven't disrespected him personally, and I haven't been commenting on all of his Instagram posts and just being a hater. But I don't know. I haven't looked into that to check for myself whether it's true or not. But I thought it was great to see that passion from Mikey. And yeah, add some narrative into the submission grappling contest, which I think is maybe one of the reasons people don't necessarily engage with it, because they don't know the story sometimes. And that's not me saying that people should be, looking into it and stuff, right? It's not their job. But I think that this one was it was probably my favorite of the submission grappling contest they've had in one so far, I would say, again, for all those reasons I already mentioned. Now you've got Cade versus Mikey coming up in Denver, which I am super excited for. You can check out a video on this channel, actually, my reaction to that fight being announced. I love that fight. Co-main event, Rodtang is back against Dennis Puric. He had a kickboxing contest after nearly a year out. Of course, last time we saw him was when he fought Superlek. This fight was so much fun. Like, I know that Rodtang does get hate. We'll talk about that in a minute because he addressed it himself. But the man is so entertaining. Like, there's a reason he's a huge star, and it's because his fights are always exciting to watch, even if the opponents usually aren't necessarily up to it. But Dennis Puric certainly was. He took a beating in that first round, to be honest, I thought, and was still there, was taunting Rodtang, and then the second and third rounds were a bit more competitive, still went Rodtang's way, I think, but really, really fun fight. Rodtang in his post-fight interview, where he was super emotional, talking about the criticism he's faced, following the injury, the talks around his commitment, and what's the other one I'm thinking of? There was something else, right, that he got criticized for? The injury. I can't remember. People have had a lot to say about Rodtang, Dennis Puric included. Although the respect between Rodtang and Dennis Puric afterwards has been fantastic to see. I don't know if you guys have seen Dennis Puric's social media posts, but go check out Dennis's Instagram of him being invited to go and play football with Rodtang and spend the day with Rodtang and his wife. It was great to see. Real heartwarming stuff. And yeah, a new friendship seems to have blossomed out of this fight. Main event, controversial main event, Tawan Chai and Joe Natterwood. Their last fight, one fight night 15 kickboxing contest, went 3 rounds. Tawan Chai won. A lot of people thought Smoking Joe won. I haven't gone back and watched that one, to be honest. I probably should. I mean, if they meet again, I definitely will. But yeah, it was a good fight the first time around. I thought really, really fun fight actually the first time around. And Tawan Chai got his hand raised, and a lot of people thought Smoking Joe won. And the same can be said for this fight. The first 2 rounds, I thought, okay, this is what Tawan Chai is going to do. They're in Muay Thai now. He just is a lot better in Muay Thai at the moment. Whether his kickboxing skills will eventually catch up, I don't know, but he's looked great in Muay Thai as of late, so that's kind of what I was expecting. And then Smoking Joe made it interesting in the later rounds for sure. Definitely made it competitive. And it was a completely different fight from last time as well. It was Joe Nato fighting off the back foot. And yeah, like I said, 3, 4, and 5, I thought was super close. I definitely thought Tawanchai won the first two. I probably would have given Smoking Joe 3 and 4. I might first watch, right? Live watch, not making notes, nothing like that. I thought Tawanchai probably did enough to win that fifth round and therefore win the fight. But I've seen a lot of people complaining about this. Obviously, Tawanchai was getting booed during his post-fight interview, which was a little bit crazy to see. You know, that is not, you know, with Stamp falling off the card and you're not booking another title fight. You're saying to Tawanchai, you know, this is your opportunity to step up to the main event, and for it to end like that, not great stuff. Will these two fight again? I mean, it depends. If Tawanchai is going to be in the featherweight kickboxing Grand Prix, maybe they put Joe Nato in as well and have them fight again in the first round. I think that that could be interesting. Obviously, it depends on when that happens. You're probably looking at the Grand Prix happening, you know, maybe potentially in the US. I think Atlanta would be a cool place to kick the Grand Prix off. But yeah, you're probably looking at like October, November for that. So depends on that. But yeah, overall, I think a really, really strong card. Actually, I had a ton of fun watching this. Some real standout performances. Pretty much all the big names on this card delivered, and some fun fights as well. My favorite fight of the night was probably it's probably Rodtang and Dennis. In terms of entertainment, in terms of like skill level, I thought Sitchai and Masaki Nori was pretty enthralling for the 3 rounds. My favorite performances, I would go for Mikey, Cade, and Sitchai. Yeah, we'll to go with that. Let's move on to talk about the Glory Light Heavyweight Kickboxing Grand Prix. This, of course, went down in the Netherlands on Saturday night. I watched this in the UK, you know, after it had happened. There was a lot of fighting on Saturday night, hence why I'm making this video and another video talking about all this stuff. And yeah, I watched it on Triller TV. Is the app? It used to be Fight TV. It cost me like £10 or something like that. If it piques your interest at all, definitely go back and watch it. I am fairly new to Glory. I did mention this. I put a video up on this channel about the heavyweight Grand Prix that happened earlier this year. I used to watch Glory when it was on Fight Pass, and then when it wasn't on Fight Pass, kind of fell out of watching it. And I've only just kind of starting to get back into it because I cover one championship, right? And so I suddenly, you know, I'm an MMA guy, through and through, and I now find myself, you know, watching a lot of kickboxing and Muay Thai. So, you know, getting into Glory seems like a good thing to do, right? And who doesn't love a Grand Prix? I certainly do. And the heavyweight Grand Prix, I had a ton of fun watching. So I thought I would check this one out as well. And of course, familiar with some of these fighters already as well. So little bit different circumstances compared to checking out the heavyweight Grand Prix. I should say, similar to the heavyweight Grand Prix card, there were so many fights this weekend. I didn't watch the fights that happened that weren't the tournament. So if there was any that were, you know, particularly stand out that are worth going back for, let me know. I already paid for the card, so I will go back and do that. The first round of the tournament was Tarek Kababez taking on Pascal Torre. Tariq Kababez, of course, is the light heavyweight champion. He won the title during the heavyweight Grand Prix card where he beat Donegi Abena. This fight was kind of, I think, what a lot of people expected, right? Champ versus, I guess, number 8 seed in the tournament, number 7 if you count the rankings, whatever. But yeah, it was kind of. I didn't think Torre had a lot to offer Kababez. He didn't really seem to deal with the pressure very well, and it was a decent win, but definitely, you know, a bit of a it wasn't an easy win for Tarek Kababez, despite the fact he got his hand raised, and despite the fact I didn't think Torre was super competitive. He still, you know, made it difficult at points for Kababez, and it was not an easy night. You know, he definitely had to put a lot of effort into getting that win, and you know, that will find out how that impacted him in the second round because he did, of course, advance. The second fight of the tournament also went 3 rounds. You had Donegi Abena, of course, the former champion, taking on Stefan Latescu, and it was the story of leg kicks. I mean, it literally says on Tapology, decision leg kicks. Oh, was it because it got stopped? Did it get stopped early because of the leg kick? I can't remember. It's thrown me off now because I saw that on Topology and was like, oh yeah, it was a decision, but it says decision leg kicks. I remember it being a decision, but maybe it was a late stoppage. I don't know what's happening there, but yeah, the leg kicks from Donegi Abena were absolutely savage. And I was interested to see how this would affect him later on in the tournament because, of course, he devastated Latescu's legs, but that does a lot of damage to your own legs as well. Like, this is something that Rico spoke about during the heavyweight Grand Prix, which he, of course, won, where he said about, they asked him, why weren't you throwing that many leg kicks? And he was like, because it does so much damage to you. There's only so many you can throw in one night. It's like you've got a limited arsenal, but a very, very impressive performance from Donegi Abena nonetheless. The next round, you had Sergey Mazloboyev taking on Bogdan Stoica. This was a crazy minute and 5 seconds until Mazloboyev landed. I believe it was the knee, but I would probably need to go back and watch the replay of this. That did the damage to Bogdan's arm. It looked like he broke his forearm potentially. Maybe it was one of the kicks that did it earlier. It looked to me like it was that exchange where he landed a knee that was kind of half blocked that did it, but I mean, you couldn't really ask for much more from Mazloboyev. I mean, to get his opponent out of there in just over a minute, and it wasn't even, like a head kick knockout or something like that. He just damaged his opponent's arm, and his opponent couldn't continue. So obviously, very disappointing for Bogdan Stoica to have an injury like that in the very first round and then get eliminated from the tournament. Yeah, it was a bit strange. Moving on to the final fight of the quarterfinals, you had Bahram Rajabzadeh taking on Ibrahim El Bouni. This was the one that I was super excited for. Of course, Bahram was in the heavyweight Grand Prix. Did he make it to it was the semi-finals, right? And he lost that controversial decision to Levi Rigters. This was I mean, this is why people should be watching Bahram Rajabzadeh. This guy is so aggressive, so exciting, so fast, creative striker. And you got to see a little bit of all of that in this first 2 minutes of this fight before he lands the flying knee that ends it. Yeah, super impressive. I will watch this guy fight every single time he makes the walk from this point on. So yeah, super exciting and set up the semi-finals of this tournament very, very well, where it started with Donegi Abenov taking on Tariq Kababes. And again, this is kind of the narrative I spoke about earlier. How much wear and tear did Tariq Kababes take in that first round matchup? And would the leg kick strategy of Donegi Abenov affect him going forward? Clearly not, because the leg kicks were still absolutely devastating. Completely tore Tariq Kababes' legs apart, obviously to get revenge after they last met a few months ago, where he lost his light heavyweight title. Super impressive performance. I mean, I don't want to give spoilers away for the final, but all three performances from Donegi Abena were absolutely fantastic. Very, very different kind of way of winning the tournament compared to the way that Rico won the heavyweight one. Rico fought super conservative until that final, and then he came up against Levi Rigters, who had been through hell and back to get there, and then he just put it on Levi from the very start. There wasn't anyone in this tournament who had the opportunity to do what Rico did. Donegi Abena had to, he wouldn't, it wasn't like a Levi Rigters scenario where he really had to fight tooth and nail to get through. I mean, Donegi Abena didn't have to fight Bahram Rajabzadeh until the last fight of the evening, as we'll get to in a minute, whereas Levi had him in the semi-finals. And you do not get through 3 rounds unscathed against that man. But yeah, super impressive performance. Like I said, semi-final. The other one was Bahram taking on Sergey Mazloboyev. A strange ending to this fight in the second round, where Mazloboyev just kind of stopped fighting. It seemed like his lip just got split really badly, and Sergey Mazloboyev said it was a headbutt. watching the replay, I mean, it wasn't intentional, so I personally felt like Mazloboyev could have continued, but I don't know how bad the cut actually was kind of in the aftermath of that. So it was a little bit of a strange ending to the fight, but it was a very, very entertaining fight whilst it lasted. And I think it's kind of hard to like measure, when we talk about the wear and tear that these guys go through in these tournaments, and that being a defining factor. It's like impossible to measure with Bahram Rajabzadeh, because he throws like a madman at the end of the third round, just like he does in the first 30 seconds of the fight. So that stood him well, I think. Coming into the main event, the final of the tournament, Bahram Rajabzadeh versus Danegi Abena, where Danegi Abena, again, probably his best performance of the whole night, landed a beautiful knockdown on Bahram. I believe it was a left hook off the top of my head. I didn't make notes. So, because like I said, there was a lot of fights this weekend, all right? I didn't have time. And yeah, beautiful performance in the main event from Denegi Abena. Talk about a way to bounce back from losing your light heavyweight title, winning the Grand Prix, and beating, a really tough run of guys. Stefan Latescu, that was a fight that I was super interested in seeing, and he looked great in that one. Then goes and beats Tariq Kababez, who of course he lost the title to a few months ago, and then beats the other guy that I was kind of looking at as a potential winner in this tournament, in Bahram Rajabzadeh. So super impressive. Like I said, I had so much fun watching this. I love these Glory Grand Prix, so I hope they keep them coming, because yeah, I have so much fun watching these. And like I said, it costs you like a tenner if you want to go back and watch it. The fights are all fantastic. The production's incredible. So yeah, go and check that out. Hopefully I've convinced you, and hopefully you had a good time with the fights. Let me know, was there anything else that I missed from this weekend? Like I said, I will have another video up on this very channel talking about some MMA that happened over the weekend. So yeah, what did I miss? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. What was your favorite fight of the weekend? What are you looking forward to this weekend? I haven't even had a chance to look at what we have coming up this weekend. It has been so crazy and non-stop. So yeah, let me know, and I will see you all very, very soon. Until next time.